All right, got another question from Sole Miranda. Yes, anyway, it's Tony Comunica. And she wrote, thanks for answering. Now I have another question. Is it true that those who have insulin resistance transform amino acids into fat? Thanks for responding, Tony. So let's unpack this a little bit. I'm not sure about how this question should be answered, but I'm assuming that you would be thinking insulin resistance would turn your proteins that you're eating into fat to be um, body fat. So, what we have to look at two things, okay? What is fat and what is insulin? Insulin is excreted by your or made by your pancreas, excreted when your blood sugar is elevated. Also, can what can cause insulin activity is protein, a higher amount of protein. So theoretically, insulin is spiked when your glucose is elevated or you've eaten protein. Very much a lot more when your blood sugar is spiked. The reason being, insulin puts energy into cells. So whatever is in excess, that's the shuttle. The hormone communicates with the cell on what energy to use and store. Insulin, when it's up, will be putting energy and nutrients into cells. Okay? Regardless if insulin is coming from amino acids, your cortisol levels, or whatever reason you have elevated glucose, that is the reason insulin is secreted. Now, insulin resistance means your body is making so much insulin all the time that your cell no longer cooperates with the insulin and it refuses to open up in the presence of insulin. So what that does is it causes metabolic dysfunction and chaos in your body because the energy has to go somewhere. So when this glucose that is dangerous in your blood is elevated, the insulin's job is to get it out of your blood and put it into cells. Now, if your cells reject it, which is insulin resistance, your body is resisting the amount of insulin that is required to put energy into cells. So regardless of where the energy is coming from, insulin resistance means your cells are not responding to the insulin required to put energy into cells. So it doesn't really matter what insulin resistance is. Once you are insulin resistant, you most likely have a blood sugar problem. So your question, can insulin resistance transform amino acids into fat? No. Insulin resistance doesn't turn anything into fat. Insulin transports energy into cells, causing fat cells to grow, muscle to grow. It's an anabolic hormone, which means building up. So insulin resistance means you have too much of this hormone building up all the time and your body stops working. So it causes dysfunction. So insulin resistance, realistically, if you wanted to look at it this way, is actually metabolic dysfunction, meaning your body's not working right to the amount of hormones required. And that hopefully answers the question. Insulin resistance is not a thing until your body stops taking the insulin. High insulin levels, that's why most of the time type 2 diabetics are fat, because their cells are so full of energy and the insulin keeps pushing fat into those cells and pushing, and then that causes the metabolic diseases. So insulin resistance is not caused, or it doesn't turn amino acids into fat per se. Insulin shuttles energy into cells. If you're insulin resistant, your body doesn't work. Your insulin doesn't work as it should, so it produces more and more insulin, and that is the problem. Okay, hopefully this answered your question. Insulin resistance is caused by elevated blood sugar levels chronically. If you are spiking your insulin once or twice a day because of protein, that is not going to lead to insulin resistance because your body doesn't have to make that much to get to shuttle that nutrition away. So fat is potential energy, and all that potential energy stored up from chronic levels of insulin is obesity. So insulin resistance is a thing. It does not cause you to be fat. It is the reason why your body is not metabolically functional. So hopefully that answers the question. I know it's a bit of a runaround, but that's insulin resistance. So no, insulin resistance does not transform amino acids into fat, literally. Insulin resistance will promote weight gain because it basically is cramming energy into cells that no longer want it. That's insulin resistance. All right. Stay strong.